How's it going, everyone? Coming out of the Game Awards 2024, one game that has propelled up my chart of my most anticipated games for 2025. Look, Mafia: The Old Country was gonna naturally be one of my most anticipated games of 25, but getting a little bit more insight and now having a little bit more information about it ahead of its summer 2025 release, I'm even more excited for the game because it's going in a direction where I truly feel that Hangar 13 learned from some of their mistakes with Mafia 3 and almost are adopting an approach similar to Mafia 1 and Mafia 2. Mafia 3 was not a bad game. Let me reiterate that. My expectations, however, and there are probably some old videos from 2016 on this channel where I was gushing about my excitement for Mafia 3, and that's because I loved Mafia 1 and 2. And Mafia 3 had a lot of elements that I like, but I think some of the shifts that Mafia 3 brought detracted from the experience. And it looks like with Mafia: The Old Country, they've learned a little from their experience with Mafia 3. Now, IGN has an in-depth interview with Alex Cox of Hangar 13 and Hasdor Gaming over on Twitter rounded out the key notes, but I'll go over the interview in a little bit, but let's just go over the key notes first. Structurally, the game is similar to Mafia 1 and 2, so obviously, that's gonna be right up your boy's alley. Cinematic experience, linear, narrative-driven will be more of a focus package. All of these things are just kind of the same thing in harkening back to what Mafia 1 and 2 were. Cinematic in 2025 means a lot different than cinematic in 2010 when Mafia 2 came out, but you get the idea. Engine reboot, American Mafia stories shouldn't be considered as an open world game. Perfect. I like that. I like this to be a game that has the structure and almost kind of a level system, but at the same time, there is a little bit of an exploration, but not a full-blown open world game. Open world is a great model, and I get why so many developers chase after it and almost view that gamers want open world games in droves. Look, the market is filled with open world games. We don't need everything to be an open world game. I get it. Games are $70, and the idea of a cinematic narrative linear experience that might be 15 hours long or 20 hours long, that again is $70, that might push some people away. You know what? Not every game is going to be for absolutely everyone, and it's not like because the game is an open world and it has 50 hours of content, suddenly they're going to lose half their audience. It's just not going to happen with a game like that. I think there's going to be some people that are going to be like, oh, okay, that's kind of a bummer. I don't have my side content to do. I don't have my outpost to capture. I don't have my side quest that may or may not have a lot of depth to it. But for me, Mafia should be an experience that's focused, that's at the core, it's an emotionally driven experience, and at its core, it's gotta be emotionally driven, and for the more mature narrative that Mafia tells, and if you played Mafia 1, 2, and 3, I feel like you don't want this disconnected package, and you want something that flows very well, and I think Old Country is going for more of that based on those key points. Now, the trailer was built around Enzo, and IGN asked Alex Cox, can you tell me a bit about Enzo? And Alex Cox responded, yeah, sure. The trailer's themed around Enzo's initiation. He's being initiated into the crime family. The Don, the guy that's cutting his lip, is the crime boss, and he's the guy who Enzo answers to in the game. Enzo starts in a very humble way. He starts his story in Sicilian sulfur mines. They were a hidden history, I suppose, to some extent for people, but there was this sulfur mining in particular using very young children. Caruso, they were known as, were a feature in the 19th century and the early 20th century in Sicily. There's a lot of people involved there, so that's Enzo's backstory. He grows up effectively in this very harsh and uncaring environment, and then he escapes that early in our story and finds his way into the Mafia in ways that will be revealed. Love that, you know, tragic backstory into the Mafia being a way as an escape. Just that background, I feel like, is something that works. Nick Baines noted, I think he's going to be a real fan favorite. He's got a very unique backstory compared to the other protagonists in the Mafia stories. Enzo is some kid who's been very deprived in his childhood. He's literally had no family at all, and he stumbles across the family, so it's a very interesting journey as the player watching him experience this and going through that with him. I think that dichotomy will be super interesting in that you are in the shift from going from somebody that's living a deprived life, literally working in these mines, and you don't know the life of not even luxury, but just basic human necessities being met, and then you're thrust into the Mafia lifestyle, where even if he's gonna go through some harsh things in the Mafia lifestyle, I would imagine it's still gonna be quite the escape from what his previous life was. That's what I'm expecting out of it, and how that's going to be structured narratively is going to be super interesting. Speaking about the world, IGN asked, you've talked about the authenticity before with it being set in 1900 Sicily. I assume the team had a nice time out there doing research. What sort of things did you get to make sure that you captured that time? You're talking about over 100 years ago, so what steps did you take to try to recreate it as authentically as possible? Cox noted, we've been out there a few times over the past couple of years. We went to Sicily, several trips out there with various members of the team. We've partnered with a Sicilian game studio, which has been great to collaborate because they understand what we're looking for as game developers. They understand the challenges of game development, of course, and the kind of information we're gonna need to know, and those guys helped us connect with various experts in Sicily, historians. They went over some examples as far as who they interacted with. I'll leave a link in the description box below where you can read the entire IGN interview, because if you want the specific nuances, you're gonna find a lot of information there. At the end of the trailer, you've got summer 2025. You'll be aware as everyone that you're coming out ahead of this other game that I guess is sort of similar. That must be quite a daunting prospect, but it'd be great to hear your perspective on Mafia coming out the same year as GTA 6, when both games are ostensibly open world crime games. So GTA 6, most think it's going to be a 2026 title, but this question I really give a lot of credit for IGN asking it, because it's a question that absolutely should be asked, and it's something on the mind of a lot of people, and it's a talking point that's been brought up. Credit to IGN for actually asking that question, because that's a great question to ask. Baines responded, what I would say is, honestly, when you make a game that they take so long to make, you just create the best thing you can. You hope it stands on its own 2 feet. Obviously, I'm aware of the game you're referring to, but I'm sure there's a lot of big games coming out next year, and we will welcome that. I think it's great for gamers. I think our game is a great experience, and people will really enjoy what they find there. And I probably know as much as you about the other games coming out next year. Probably less, actually. Honestly, though, it sounds like I'm avoiding the question. It's not really something we think about as much as a team, because it's out of our control. We just make the best game we can. We're making it for Mafia fans. It's the story we want to tell in the Mafia universe. Cox also noted they are different games, and actually more so over time. Certainly if you track back both GTA and Mafia since 2000-ish, 2002 and GTA 3 and Mafia 3 came out, they were mechanically very similar, but Mafia's always had a bit more focus on its linear narrative versus the sandbox experience, which Rockstar does industry super best quality. Actually, Mafia over time has become increasingly more about the linear story, and so I don't think the games are fundamentally that similar, other than they have a shared theme, which is what I always say about Sleeping Dogs and GTA. And Sleeping Dogs is a game that I feel like is more comparable to GTA in the sense of it being an open world title, where Mafia is a little bit different and has even more focus, at least Mafia 1 and 2. You know, the thing is, you're talking about 5 to 7 year game dev cycles, at GTA 6 even longer than that. You can't be pushing around games. Like, at some point, you just gotta be of the mindset the game's gonna release when it releases. And yes, GTA 6 is going to be big, and I think a lot of people are gonna be invested into it. But it's gonna be a game just like any other, where people will have a great time with it for a month, for a couple weeks even. Some people play these games for a couple weeks and then they move on. I don't think it should be this big of a daunting aspect. Certainly you don't want them to be released in the same week or even a couple weeks apart from one another, but I doubt that's going to be the case. Summer of 2025, GTA 6 probably not even going to be in 2025 by what I'm hearing, so I don't think that's going to be a big deal. And if a game is really good, I think it'll still do fairly well. Like, Unicorn Overlord came out a week after Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I didn't think that was a great idea, but Unicorn Overlord still did very well, and that's super niche JRPGs. I get it. This is a totally different genre and scale of game releases, but you get the point I'm making. I think Mafia the Old Country, as long as it's a good game, it'll be fine. And the comparison is the same thing with Sleeping Dogs and GTA. It's a comparison that I can understand why it's made. The crime aspect, the crime-themed game, and the sense of, I guess you could view it as this explorable world, but they really do have different offerings to the consumer, and I think both games can coexist. Even if they're released, let's say, within 2 months of one another, I don't think that's a big deal, and people will gravitate back to Mafia. Maybe I'm out to lunch with that one, but let me know what you guys think. And Cox did note that you can traverse the world in a car, on foot, or on horseback. It's just a rural environment. As with Mafia 1 and 2, it's a linear story. You travel around the world. Some of the missions are set in the world in an open environment. There is a continuous map. There's a world to explore, but as with Mafia 1 and 2, the focus is very, very firmly on the main story. That is exactly what I want, not a regular open world game where do whatever the hell you want. Mafia needs that focus. It needs that emphasis on that gritty narrative, especially for the style of story that it looks like they're going to be telling with this game. I think that's the best case scenario. Everything based on that trailer and based on what I'm hearing about Mafia Old Country right now, it is one of my most anticipated games of 2025. It's exactly the type of game that I get super into, and I think if they deliver on this, here's a take, I think it'll be one of the biggest games of 2025 from a reception standpoint and a commercial standpoint. I just feel like it's got a lot working for it, and I think if it beats out GTA 6 in its release, I think GTA 6 would affect it a little bit, and maybe even more than a little bit if they're right around the same time frame, but I don't think it's going to be this daunting task, and I think this is exactly what a longtime fan of Mafia would want. We'll wait and see for more, but 2025, a big year for gaming, and Mafia the Old Country going to be one of the bigger game releases, I think, of next year. That's going to do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.